Welcome everyone to this explainer. Let's just jump straight in, because today we are undertaking a complete mindset makeover by exploring Morgan Housel's groundbreaking insights into the psychology of wealth. We so often think of finance as this rigid realm of spreadsheets, stock charts, and really complex math. But here is the massive paradigm shift we're going to unpack today. Financial success, it isn't actually a hard science at all. It's a soft skill. It is entirely about how you behave, way more than what you know. So I want you to consider this massive paradox for a moment. Why does financial success depend so much more on your behavior than your sheer intelligence? It's kind of wild because we regularly see incredibly smart, top-tier financial geniuses go completely bankrupt, while ordinary people, folks with everyday jobs and absolutely zero financial background, quietly become millionaires. I mean, how does that even happen? Well, it happens because those ordinary people have mastered their emotions. They implicitly understand that the money game is driven by human psychology, by greed, fear, and insecurity, rather than just raw data. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at why behavior trumps IQ. Second, we'll dive into the invisible forces of luck and risk. Third, the real difference between being rich and being wealthy. Fourth, the mechanics of success. And finally, time and freedom. Let's get into it. Starting with Section 1. Behavior over financial intelligence. To really wrap our heads around money, we have to realize one incredibly simple truth. Nobody is actually crazy when it comes to their financial decisions. Think about it. Every single person walks around with a totally unique worldview, shaped by their own specific upbringing, their environment, and their life experiences. Your personal, firsthand experiences with money, they make up a teeny tiny fraction of global objective reality. Yet, those highly personal beliefs dictate almost 80% of your financial behavior. Whether you grew up scraping by during a massive recession or thriving in an economic boom, those early memories literally wire your brain to view money in a highly subjective, deeply personal way. Take lottery tickets, for example. High-income earners might look at low-income Americans spending roughly $400 a year on tickets and think, wow, that is just terrible math. But if you actually put yourself in their shoes for a second, that $400 isn't an investment in mathematical probability. It's buying a dream. It's buying hope. So what looks like an objectively terrible financial decision to one person is actually a deeply logical, emotional choice to somebody else. Moving right along to Section 2, the invisible forces of luck, risk, and mindset. While hard work is absolutely vital, we have to remember that luck and risk are basically siblings in the game of life. Just look at the incredibly contrasting fates of two absolutely brilliant students from Lakeside School back in the late 1960s. Bill Gates experienced a massive 1 in a million stroke of luck. He attended one of the only high schools in the entire world that had a computer, all thanks to a visionary teacher who dropped $3,000 on it. That tailwind helped birth Microsoft. Now, on the flip side, his classmate, Kent Evans, was equally brilliant, equally driven, but he fell victim to the ultimate risk, a fatal mountaineering accident right before graduation. Both were incredibly talented, but their ultimate outcomes were heavily dictated by uncontrollable tailwinds and headwinds. Because the world is just so wonderfully complex and unpredictable, massive success is often driven by what we call tail events, these rare, super high-impact outcomes. The famous art collector Heinz Berggruen bought huge amounts of art. And honestly, a lot of it wasn't worth much. But mixed in there were a few Picassos and Matisses that made him an absolute legend. Venture capital funds operate the exact same way. They fully expect 80% of the companies they invest in to just fail entirely. They are relying on just one or two massive runaway successes to pay for all the duds. You can literally be wrong half the time and still make an absolute fortune. Now, successfully navigating this risk actually requires battling our own biology. As the psychologist Daniel Kahneman points out, our brains are hardwired to prioritize threats. It's what kept our ancestors alive, right? This creates what's known as the seduction of pessimism. So someone confidently predicting a massive market crash sounds like a genius we absolutely must listen to, while an optimist just sounds naive. But history proves the optimist is almost always right. Progress is slow, it's steady, and it compounds over time, whereas destruction and panic happen in mere seconds. Which brings us to Section 3, being rich versus true wealth. It is so incredibly easy to confuse what we can visually see with actual, true financial security. Let's break down this stark contrast because it's a game changer. Being rich is highly visible. It's the flashy luxury car, the massive house, the designer clothes. It means you have a high current income, and crucially, you are spending it. Capitalism really encourages this earning and spending cycle, but it simultaneously breeds this endless, exhausting game of envy. True wealth, on the other hand, is completely invisible. It is literally the money you haven't spent. It's the investments, the quiet savings accounts, the unspent assets that grant you flexibility and freedom when you need it most. There's this absolutely incredible anecdote about the authors Kurt Vonnegut and Joseph Heller attending this incredibly lavish party hosted by a billionaire. Vonnegut kind of jokes that the billionaire makes more money in a single day than Heller ever made from his wildly successful novel Catch-22. And Heller just calmly replies, "Yes, but I have something he will never have: enough." Recognizing when you have enough is basically a superpower. It stops you from taking foolish risks with the money you actually have and need just to get money you don't have and frankly don't need. You know, when most people say, "Man, I want to be a millionaire," what they're actually saying is, "I want to spend $1,000,000. And spending $1,000,000 is literally the exact opposite of being wealthy. Wealth is simply the money that remains in your account after you decide not to buy something. All right, section 4, the mechanics of success and the magic of compounding. Let's shift gears away from trying to pick the perfect stock and focus entirely on mindset. Here's the really fascinating thing about building wealth. The skills required to get wealthy are fundamentally the opposite of the skills required to stay wealthy. Think about it. Getting wealthy requires putting your foot on the gas, taking risks, pushing boundaries, having super high confidence and relentless optimism. But staying wealthy? That requires hitting the brakes. It requires humility. It demands a healthy fear of loss, some frugality, and a strict survival mindset so you don't lose the whole shebang when the market inevitably takes a downturn. I want you to really think about this single number, 75. Literally everyone studies Warren Buffett trying to find his secret sauce for picking stocks. But his true genius, it's just that he has been investing consistently for 75 years. The vast majority of his massive net worth didn't even accumulate until after his 50th birthday. It's all about the sheer magic of uninterrupted compounding over decades. So to actually let that compounding work its magic, you have to survive long enough in the game. You need that survival mindset. First, you've got to create a financial margin of safety, a solid buffer of cash just to absorb life's shocks. Second, always plan for your plan not going according to plan. And third, try to be an optimistic paranoiac. Be wildly optimistic about where we're heading in the long run, but stay highly paranoid about what might go wrong tomorrow. Oh, and remember, treat market volatility as an admission fee to the greatest wealth-building machine on earth, not as a fine for making a bad choice. A massive part of that survival mindset is actively dodging the sunk cost fallacy. We constantly cling to bad investments or failing businesses just because we've already sunk money into them. But the smartest investors, they know exactly when to walk away and cut their losses. You absolutely must leave room for error because, as the expert Scott Sagan brilliantly put it, things that have never happened before happen all the time. Past success is absolutely no guarantee of future safety. And finally, section 5, freedom, time, and flexibility. Because ultimately, what is all this money actually for? The author of these concepts, Morgan Housel, actually shares his own personal strategies for independence, and they are brilliantly, refreshingly simple. He pursues low-cost joys, reading, exercising, just listening to podcasts. He completely paid off his house. Now, maybe that's not the most mathematically optimized investment, but it gives him absolute peace of mind. He keeps roughly 20% of his assets in cash just to protect against emergencies, and he invests the rest solely in boring, low-cost index funds. He makes his financial decisions based entirely on what allows him to sleep like a baby at night. Because when you bring all these ideas together, it really points to one singular, powerful definition. True financial freedom is gaining absolute control over your time. It is possessing the flexibility to wake up every single morning and say, "I can do whatever I want today." The highest possible dividend that money can pay you isn't a flashy sports car or a mega mansion. It is the freedom to choose your own path without relying on anyone else. So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on as you reflect on your own financial journey. Are you spending your money just to show people how much money you have? Or are you saving your money to actually buy back your freedom? Master your behavior, embrace that survival mindset, and let compounding do the heavy lifting for you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it fundamentally transforms the way you view wealth.